What's going on, guys? Welcome back. FantasyTeamAdvisors.com, bringing home the bacon. XFL Week 4 running back rankings. So maybe you just saw the QB rankings. If you haven't, it'll be at the end of the video. Go check it out with every single other position that we have. All of the articles are on the website, FantasyTeamAdvisors.com. You can see it right here. You can click whichever sport you want, but obviously we're doing XFL right now. So go here, click the articles, and go check it out. So before we get started, we're still offering this, and we have 19 coupon codes left. I said it in the other video, but if you want to get the rest of the XFL season for $25 off, get it for only $50. Go to FantasyTeamAdvisors.com, hit FTA Plus. So go here, it'll load, and then go down. You can click join, and then when you do that, all you have to do is go ahead and sign up. It'll ask for a coupon code. Use the coupon code XFL year, all one word, all capital letters, XFL year. You get $25 off. First come, first serve, only 19 left. So that being said, let's look at this. Now, depending if you're playing season long, depending if you're playing, and by season long, alt fantasy sports, or if you're playing DFS, which the majority of people seem to be, the rankings are going to come down to sometimes the running backs aren't as vital as they are in the NFL, the way the rosters are constructed. But looking at this, I'm bringing this to you. If you have any questions, definitely let me know. But these are just the rankings that we have. These will be subjected to change, like I said in the QB video. My wife and I go to the hospital back and forth to see our baby girl, so I will try to update this. I'm not 100% sure if I can, but this is a nice way to look at this. We also have the cheat sheet out there, so if you have any questions, it's part of the content. You can check it out. So let's take a look. Let's see. So I have 22 running backs listed. We're not going to go over all 22 in this video because the video would be an hour long. But we're going to go about the top 10, and we're going to look at it. If you have questions, definitely comment down below. If you guys want a free FanDuel and DraftKings GBB lineup, check out the QB video and get 50 likes on it, and we'll do that. So that being said, looking at Cameron Sardis Payne, number 1. So just kind of looking at him, he's the most expensive running back on DraftKings. Houston ranks fifth out of 8 against the running backs. Last week against Seattle, 13 attempts for 80 yards, 6 receptions for 30 yards. He had 17 fantasy points. He has gone down 300 this week. Week 2, he had 31 fantasy points. In week 1 against St. Louis, he had 6. I do like him. Again, though, I have found, now you may have constructed your rosters completely differently, but I have found when I've built them out for the website that I haven't paid up a ton for our running backs. Now, there have been some that I have paid up for, and it's worked out. We had Cameron Sardis Payne in week 2, and it worked out for us. But the optimal construction has looked like you're looking at your QB. You've got to match him up with a wide receiver, and then depending on what site you're on, you can have flex, wide receiver / tight end. There's 1 or 2 tight ends that I feel comfortable with, but mostly it's been the wide receiver QB ranking. So that's something to monitor. Don't necessarily have to pay up, but you can. Number 2, running back Matt Jones going up against Seattle. Problem is he's questionable. He had and he's also 900 less than Payne. He was unable to practice Tuesday. So kind of this being filmed on Thursday, we're kind of waiting to see how he's progressing through the week to see if he will be able to play. Analysis was he's coming off his best week. Last week against New York, now New York's terrible. They didn't pass it a ton. They ran the ball. St. Louis ran the ball just to dominate New York. He had 15 attempts, 95 yards, 1 touchdown. 16 fantasy points. Week 2 against Houston, he had 14 fantasy points. And week 1 against Dallas, he had 9. So Matt Jones has 30 fantasy points, or 39 fantasy points on the season. He is $400 less than he was last week against New York. The problem is, definitely make sure you check the knee. And also him and Michael, they do split the backfield. So that would be something you could pay attention to when you're getting your roster in tune for this week. Number 3 is James Butler against Dallas. I love James Butler here. The only problem is Dallas is ranked number 1 of stopping the running backs. Last week he had 13 fantasy points with 72 yards and 5 yards receiving. Week 2 against St. Louis, he had 28 yards, a touchdown, and 11 fantasy points. And week 1 against LA, he had 30 yards with a touchdown and then 20 receiving yards with a receiving touchdown and 19 fantasy points. If you want to look at this, the only problem is I like him. He is 400 more than Matt Jones, but Matt Jones has a little bit better matchup. But the problem is, again, Matt Jones is questionable, so that is something to monitor. But it is really James Butler's backfield. It's his situation to lose. Number 4 is Lance Dunbar. Lance Dunbar is going up against Houston. They ranked 5th against the running back position. Dunbar is averaging about 13.7 fantasy points per game of 3 games. Last week, he had 8 attempts for 23 yards, 9 receptions on 11 targets, 56 yards. He had 17 fantasy points at 6,600, and he's only gone up $100 on DraftKings. In week 2 against LA, he had 42 yards on 6 rushing attempts. He caught 5 of his 6 targets for 13 fantasy points. And against St. Louis, week 1, he's getting the yards behind in the backfield, and he's getting a ton of receptions as well. So I love him. I mean, he's listed as a running back, but they're utilizing him more as a wide receiver. Week 1 against St. Louis, he had 12 fantasy points. The only thing is, I mean, he's got 42 fantasy points, and he doesn't even have a touchdown. He has no touchdowns this season. So that's something to think about. He's a little bit cheaper, $6,700 if you are going a running back. And I mean, if he gets, he's getting the rushes, he's getting the attempts, 5 to 10 attempts. He's getting anywhere between, coming off against Seattle, 11 targets there, 6 week 1, 6 week in week 2. He's getting that. All he needs is that 1 touchdown. He's going to outperform. Love Lance Dunbar here if you do want to save a little bit of money. Number 5 is Devion Smith for Tampa Bay, going up against DC. Now DC currently against the run, DC ranks 7th. Devion Smith is averaging only about 9 fantasy points a game. Last week he's coming off 11. Week 2 against Seattle is coming off 7, and week 1 he's coming off 10. He's also getting some receiving yards as well. So week 3 he had 49 rushing yards and 36 receiving yards. Week 2 he had 46 rushing yards, 12 receiving yards, and week 1 79 rushing yards, 8 yards of reception. He doesn't have a touchdown this season, but he is relatively cheap. Tampa Bay kind of showed some life last week. I think he's, and especially with Flowers leaving, who QB running back situation, whatever you want to call it, Devion Smith could go under the radar this week. Number 6, Donnell Pumphrey. Now, just kind of looking at him, Jarrell Presley is questionable right now. He was he's got a shoulder injury. He was limited in practice last on Tuesday or Wednesday, I believe. So Pumphrey, Tampa Bay actually is ranked 2nd best against the running back, so that's a little iffy. Week 3, Pumphrey had 7 fantasy points. Week 2, he had 11, and week 1, he had 3. I've got him there. I'm probably not going to see him in many, if at all, any of our lineups that I end up making. FanDuel or DraftKings really doesn't matter. Maybe he's, sneaks in there if Presley is out. We'll just kind of have to see. Number 7, Patrick. We've got, depending on what's going on, who it's going to be, if you're going Devion Smith or Patrick. Patrick last week, 18 rushing yards, 11 receiving yards, 5 fantasy points. Against Seattle, week 2, he had 10 fantasy points, and week 1 against New York, he had 4. Other than that, I'm probably... I haven't used many running backs, and I don't foresee me doing this unless I'm playing like the single games. So that's the only real place I would look to running backs. Outside of the top 5, I honestly don't know if I'll be moving towards any of these running backs. But again, these are just the rankings that we have. Number 8, Christine Michael. The problem is he does split the backfield with Matt Jones. Matt Jones is questionable. Michael would be a little bit better if Jones is in fact out. But looking at that, last week Michael had 10 fantasy points. Week 2 he had 8. And week 1 we know what he did. He had -1 receiving yards, 7 attempts for 0 yards, and 0 fantasy points. Week 1 he was 8,400. Right now he's 5,700 on DraftKings. So if Matt Jones is out, Michael might creep up to the top 5. We'll just kind of have to play it by ear there. Number 9, Trey Williams. Yeah, there's not much that I'm looking at here. So he had 8 fantasy points last week. Week 2 against Tampa Bay, 5. And week 1 he had 14 fantasy points. He has dropped from 5,000 to 4,400. So a GPP play, I don't mind. I probably won't be playing much of him. And then number 10, Martez Carter, questionable right now. The problem is, he had 3 touchdowns last week. He had 34 rushing yards with 2 rushing touchdowns and 41 receiving yards on 1 touchdown. The problem is he didn't practice on Tuesday, and he has an ankle injury. He was 3,000 last week. He's now 5,200. This is something to monitor. If he is out, Elijah Hood would be bumping up even more. So this is definitely something you need to be paying attention to. He is questionable as well. So there you go, guys. There are the running backs that we've ranked. If you have any questions at all, please feel free, comment down below or email me, fantasyteamadvisors@gmail.com. And don't forget, if you want to get $25 off, we have 19 coupon codes left. All you have to do, go to fantasyteamadvisors.com, hit the FTA Plus button, then scroll right down to the very first list. See XFL Yearly. Use the coupon code XFL Year, all caps, all one word, XFL YEAR. Get $25 off. Get the rest of the season. That includes articles, matchup tool, cheat sheets, and lineups for you guys. So that's all I've got, guys. Good luck this week, and as always, bring home that bacon.